Welcome to Bunch Formation, your newest favorite college football show. I am Chris Vannini, and I am not paying somebody more than $20 million to rent my time in their conference.
And I am David Ubben, and I'm just here so I don't get fired for cause. Apparently, the bar for that is dropping lower than ever. And by the way, if you have any contacts with polar water, please hit us up because it's one of the great products in America, and I can't get them to kick back with me. So please, polar water, hit us up. We love
Don't
it.
say too many nice things yet. David always drinks, he's a big seltzer guy, drinks polar water for the show. And we've reached out once to see if they want to sponsor. And now David's going to incorporate it into his intro without it. So let's relax. We also got the great Sam Kahn here with us, our friend, our colleague at The Athletic. We are going to talk about the portal today. Sam, what's going on, man?
Not much. The portal activity slowed down, so I have my weekends back, which is really
Nice.
I've been in recovery here. It's February, mid-February, so I'm in full off-season recovery mode from the craziness because as you guys know, this season is really long with the games alone with the national championship, but the portal stuff for me makes January busier than even the season for me. So it's like a sprint from late December until really the end of January, and then it started to slow to a trickle. But I'm enjoying that now we're in the dead period bliss. Every general manager or personnel guy I talked to was like, "Hey, how's the dead period treating you?" Because it's treating me pretty damn well right now.
Sam, as you somebody had a front row to the portal, what have you learned about negotiating, be it with your children, with your wife, with your employer, as you have studied the portal as it has grown in influence and prominence in college football?
I don't know how much patience I have for negotiation. I'm not giving anything back to my kids to redline and then return to me. We had that happen with a lot of players. Like, oh well, we're just waiting for the agent to redline what they need to redline, and then we're gonna finish up this deal. We're not doing that in my house. Okay, I'm more of a sole discretion kind of guy. And we're going to make decisions at dad's sole discretion or mom's sole discretion. And then you're following in line or you're getting some type of consequence. So no, it's been good. My kids are good. They're well behaved, and we're in soccer season right now. So I'm just really
you got to watch out for the grandparents tampering as well.
We have a lot of that
and whatnot. We're going to have a fun episode here. We're going to talk about the winners and losers of the portal, underrated classes, most interesting individual editions, all kinds of stuff. I'm somebody who, because that is still when the season is like largely going on a bit, and I'm kind of in playoff mode, and there's so much going on that outside of the big names, like I cannot keep track of it.
No.
I'm like, all right, wake me up in like a month and I'll see where everybody is. That's Sam's job, is to keep track of all that. And so having him on, he's going to help educate us. If you have, like me, been kind of whirlwind of a portal, you don't exactly know who did what, we're going to get into all of that and hopefully make everything a little bit easier to adapt to and adjust to and think about going into spring football, because this was also the only transfer portal. There is not, at the moment, one for the spring. We'll see what happens after spring ball, but there is not supposed to be one. So please, if you want to check out the show notes, we're going to have Sam's stories in there that he wrote on The Athletic, more details about the portal and the things you kind of want to know as a college football fan. We'll have timestamps in the show as well. Please send any emails or feedback to bunchformationpod@gmail.com, and we are on all the other social medias, especially YouTube. Please follow us there. Please like the video. Please leave comments, 5-star reviews. It's all very, very helpful. And in the coming weeks, we got some more fun episodes. We're going to have a coach carousel episode, thinking about a college football 26 long-term review. We got some interviews. So we got good content coming up. And Sam's one of the best to talk about the portal here to do that. So we will start off with kind of like some big picture stuff. Sam, were there any trends that jumped out to you in this portal compared to years prior, whether it be a position group or money or teams? As you kind of really take a big step back, what was unique about this portal?
A few things. One, I thought the quarterback market at the very top, overall, it went up really from the baseline all the way up, but I really felt it skyrocketed at the top. Last year, the top guys were topping out between 3 and 4 million. You started to see rumors and hear rumors of guys pushing 4, 5, maybe 6 mil annually at the very, very top of the market. I think Brendan Sorsby and Josh Hoover probably, from what I heard, both around that 5 million-ish range for their deals. So really some high moves up in that. But even at the baseline, like last year, it seemed like you could get a baseline power 4 starter for a little bit under 7 figures. It seemed like that moved up to now, whereas like if you weren't paying at least $1 million, you're probably not getting a power 4 starting quarterback out of the portal. And then for the high end non quarterbacks, we really saw some of those numbers explode. Cam Coleman, I know, commanded a lot in his recruitment. Jordan Seaton was also rumored, the left tackle from Colorado, was also rumored to get multi-millions annually. So the outliers for some of the really premium positions and premium players was a little bit higher. And I think the market from the bottom just seemed to push up. Like there are some positions I would say were relatively flat. I think tight ends largely seem kind of flat, but I think a lot of the position groups you saw everything just push up higher this time around.
And I think we saw a lot more starting power 4 quarterbacks on the move that we didn't the year prior. You mean Hoover goes from TCU to Indiana. Sam Levitt goes from Arizona State to LSU. Darian Mensah, Duke to Miami at the last second. Sorsby goes from Cincinnati to Texas Tech. And Dylan Raiola goes from Nebraska to be a backup. Those are all quarterbacks who arguably might be better than all, if not most, of the quarterbacks in last year's portal. And that's after some of these guys like Hoover, like TCU kept Hoover after Tennessee was interested when Nico Iamaleava left a year ago. For some schools, the thought was like, spend your money on keeping guys. That's the best way to use your money. That was the consensus coming out of a year ago. But have we now seen like starting quarterbacks still pushing that number higher, where some schools are like, you know what, it's better to save that money and use it somewhere else?
I think there's a few things at work here. One, I think you're right in that there still is some desire to retain players and spend money there, because as I talked to a general manager just the other day, you'd rather spend the money on guys you know rather than guys you don't. It's a lot more of a sure thing for a guy who's already been in your system, who likes being there. And it generally is cheaper to retain a guy than it is to go get a transfer. Yeah, but on the flip side, if you have a quarterback hole and you're not certain about who you have, you better go get one, and it's going to cost a lot to go get one. So I also think you saw, it's going back to the earlier question about trends, I think you saw some of the really bluest of blue bloods changing strategy a little bit. They had largely have been the schools that have recruited high-end high school recruits, develop and retain them. Starting to see more big-time programs let some of those good, young, talented players walk that maybe aren't ready to get in the lineup, and instead go invest more money in the portal for a proven player. And I think a lot of that has to do with what you saw Indiana do. Indiana won with a roster that was a little bit more experienced, a little bit older, and I think programs are starting to ask the question, are we putting enough money on the field, and are we spending too much money on guys who are on the sideline that are in year 1, year 2, not ready to contribute? And if I'm going to spend, let's say, $750,000 on an offensive tackle out of high school, he better play pretty quickly, because if you're paying him for 2 years and he's not playing much, either he departs after year 2, or you wasted basically $1.5 million on a guy who didn't really contribute very much. And I think people are kind of doing the mental math of, okay, how do we get our money onto the field?
Sam, the personnel people that I talked to in the offseason, and I talked to an AD about this even last week, was that the market for quarterbacks was going to keep going up and up, and that other positions and other places would level off. You mentioned tight ends, but what is the profile of a guy who had maybe a rude awakening as they examined the market for their services in the portal, where, there's been a trend the last 3 or 4 years that like, oh, you can double your money. You can double your money. And that didn't really happen this year, in part with rev share coming in, and in part because the market is settling a little bit. Where did you see the most stagnation or plateauing for guys, at what level and what position?
I would say interior offensive line to me seems to be pretty consistent with last year. Linebackers maybe at the top end went up a little higher, but I feel like the baseline and for the vast majority of those guys has flattened out a little bit. And those are probably the two that are really the most affordable positions. Probably that was the case last year and certainly the case this year. Where I seem to see guys having rude awakenings is, and this is not across positions, this is just in general across the entire market. If you're not getting good advice, then you could really find yourself in a bad position. And I think we've all recognized that as an issue. There are way more players that are out there that are going to transfer than there are agents that are capable and competent to do this. And that's not to knock the agents. That's just to say, when you have, let's just say 3,500 FBS scholarship players in the portal, there's not 3,500 agents out there that are good enough to represent all those guys.
No.
And it's just a numbers game. And so if you get in the portal because you think you can get X and you really are only going to get half that, I think you have a lot of guys who are making moves just for the sake of making moves because they think they're going to get more money, when in actuality, maybe they get $100K more to go somewhere else. And maybe that fit isn't as good as it was at the previous school. There's a lot of, I think, when you get past the starters, I think there's a lot of just rearranging the deck chairs where you're just trading my second team linebacker for your second team linebacker. And I don't know that there's a really big difference between the two. And I think that when we will eventually see that settle, I think as the market settles, which I think it will, we started to see it right before rev share kicked in. The NIL market started to seem like it was settling right before we got into the rev share. I think in another couple of years, we'll see the rev share market settle, and I think you'll see transfer start to settle. One of the things that's interesting to me about this, and I know this is a different circumstance, but there are fewer players who went in the portal this year than last year. That is something that you don't hear people talk about. Everybody's decries, oh, well, we got all these players in the portal. I'm going to look right now at Sports Source Analytics, who breaks down these portal numbers. FBS Power 4 scholarship players got in the portal. 24-25 cycle last year, 3,558. This year, 2026 cycle, 3,370. Now, the context is required. There's 2 portal windows. Last year, there's only 1 this year. But I still think it's notable that essentially we are flat year over year with how many guys get in the portal. We didn't see a big increase, which every year since the portal's been open, there has been an exponential increase in how many guys get in.
And we had the COVID year guys are pretty much phased out now. That was something that was also increasing the numbers a little bit as well. Let's get into the teams. You have, in terms of the best classes, you ranked top 25 portal classes. Link is in the show notes. Number 1, LSU. Number 2, Indiana. Number 3, Texas. 4, Texas Tech. 5, Miami. What is it about LSU that you really like? David has Sam Leavitt as his early Heisman Trophy pick. That was obviously a pretty big one.
I already passed my ballot, actually.
Yeah. What did you like particularly about LSU? So for people who don't know, they added Sam Leavitt, quarterback, Arizona State. Prince Will, I can't pronounce the last name. I figured out how to say it.
There you go, David.
Jordan Seaton, offensive tackle from Colorado. Ty Benefield, really good safety from Boise State. That's some pretty good high-end talent. What did you like about what they did?
First, the top end guys. I mean, the name of the game in the portal, let's just call it what it is, free agency, just like in the NFL, just like in the NBA, the name of the game is getting impact players. And they got a bona fide star quarterback who, if Sam Leavitt was healthy all last season and still got in the portal, I think he'd be my number 1 guy. We had Darian Mensah as our number 1 guy, but for my money, when he's fully healthy, I think Leavitt was the best quarterback, would have been the best quarterback available. Prince Will, I think, is a tremendous edge rusher. He in limited snaps, I say limited, relatively speaking, he didn't play like 800 snaps. He was more in that 400 to 500 range. Tremendously productive. Benefield, super experienced, 3-year starter out of Boise State, all conference guy, plug and play. Jordan Seaton, I think there's still some development that needs to happen in his game, but in terms of physical traits, you're talking future first round talent at that position. And that's number 1. Number 2, they didn't lose a ton in terms of real impact starters. I think they really only lost 3 players on their roster that started 6 or more games last year to the portal. A couple of them that got in, Caden Durham and Weston Davis, they were able to get them back. So
I really like Caden Durham, the young running back. I keep him.
That's because you got your butt handed to you by him in college football 25.
I think
right?
some of that too is like just
Sam, you and I saw him though at the A&M game too. We saw him in person.
Yes,
really break
he's
out.
tremendous player.
But LSU's program is a little bit like Ohio State in that you're actually committing to the program, not the coaching staff. And if you're ranking programs that if they had a coaching change would be least likely to have a mass exodus, LSU would probably be number 1 on my list. Ohio State maybe 2. And that like if you're from that region, like you are going there, and it probably helps that Nick Saban's not trying to pull guys off as well. But has Lane Kiffin retained the Portal King moniker away from Kurt Cignetti then?
Maybe so. I wrote that column after the first weekend of the portal that Cignetti had wrestled the crown of Portal King away from him because Indiana had a killer first weekend. And I thought they did. They obviously are number 2 in our rankings. I thought they did the next best job after LSU. But when you started seeing him Kiffin close on Jordan Seaton, Kiffin close on Sam Levitt, even though it was a little sticky there for a little bit. Now, that was part of my thinking is I thought he bungled the quarterback situation initially. They didn't get Sorsby after getting him on a visit. The Damon Williams thing obviously fell through. They almost lost Levitt because Levitt was visiting when the Damon Williams thing went down. And then he had to basically go chase Sam Levitt. But the bottom line is he got it done. Got some key guys from Ole Miss. The other thing is that there's depth in this class. I thought they addressed every position group. I love the group of receivers they brought in. They brought in a lot of talent, even some really talented G5 receivers that are coming in and I think fit that offense really well. And that's the other thing is portal is about fit. And I think when you talk about some of the players they got, especially with Levitt, I can envision Levitt fitting like a glove in what Lane Kiffin does offensively. I think
by the way, Sam,
with receivers could be really, really good.
Speaking of Kiffin, the closer, while Sam Levitt was waiting and extended his visit to Tennessee, did the clandestine meeting at the private air hangar in the Knoxville airport between Sam Levitt and Lane Kiffin, did that actually happen? That was real, right?
As far as I know, it was. Yeah. We'll have to do some more digging. That's one of those offseason I want to dig into, like how did they close on this class and how did they close on Levitt? I'd love to do some more reporting on that. But it sounded to me that he was actually there and was actually making chase, and I think it paid off because Levitt ended up visiting Miami right after that. And
LSU was able to I don't want to disclose my socioeconomic status. Never been in the inside of the private airplane hangar in the Knoxville airport. So maybe one day.
So in Indiana, number 2, as we said, notable guys: Josh Hoover, quarterback from TCU; Nick Marsh, receiver from Michigan State, crossing lines in the old brass spittoon rivalry. Joe Bruner, the guard from Wisconsin; Turbo Richard, awesome name, running back from Boston College. What was different about Indiana this time around? Is it simply like everybody sees what he's built and now he's just able to get a higher quality of guy and he doesn't have to bring everybody over from James Madison? What is the view of what Indiana is doing now when they seek out players?
Yeah, I mean they went and got guys this time. It wasn't okay, we're going to comb through and not to say that they didn't, like they still I thought nailed the evaluations on this one. I mean it's not really, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to evaluate Nick Marsh and know that
Nick
he's
Marsh
going to
is
be a big guy.
For people who didn't watch Michigan State because they've been terrible the last couple of years, if you're a Big Ten fan and you watched your team probably beat Michigan State, you did notice Nick Marsh. That guy is a dude that MSU was able to hold on to him for a year, but not for a second year. He's going to be
that's an NFL receiver. That's an NFL receiver.
Yes.
The other thing is I know people have questions about Josh Hoover and how many turnovers he had at TCU, which were quite a bit. But I love the system fit because the team that ran the most RPOs last year was Indiana. The team that ran the second most RPOs was TCU. Mm-hmm. I think for what they do offensively, he's going to fit. He's got, I think from a physical skill profile, very similar to Fernando Mendoza. Let's not forget, a year ago, nobody was talking about Fernando Mendoza for Heisman. There were some discussions about him being NFL. A potential first round pick, but not the number 1 pick. And I think we forget what we thought of Fernando Mendoza before he got to Indiana. And Josh Hoover, I think is already a little further along in his development curve at this point in his career than Mendoza was a year ago before he got to Indiana. But to your original question, Chris, yes, they went and got a higher level guy. They went and got 2 edge rushers from Kansas State who are really good players. They got Nick Marsh. They got Josh Hoover. They got Turbo Richard. They really got some bona fide Power 4 transfers. It wasn't going to go mine the group of 5s or just go get some under the radar guys. Like they went and got legitimate dudes to add to this roster, and I think they're going to be right in the middle of the mix again next year.
Like I'd heard they had basically told some people like, you're not on our level anymore in terms of the quality of player that we're being brought to them. Like
Indiana out here.
we're not scrounging around for guys. We have a higher bar basically that you have to meet. So David, what do you think of David, Texas Tech, your national championship pick for this past season? They added Brendan Sorsby, obviously, Adam Trick from Miami of Ohio, an edge rusher, Trey White from San Diego State, who I really like, edge rusher, San Diego State. What do you guys like about what Tech has done, building off of last year and just kind of continuing to do what they did again?
I think for me, it's really, you obviously had to upgrade at quarterback. I mean, this time, well, not this time last year, but going into the season, I think we all were looking around at Texas Tech, and I had some optimism, but I was skeptical. But a lot of my skepticism was around, they spent all this money, and it kind of felt like you just had a guy at quarterback in Baron Morton. It's like, he's okay. And that revealed itself, obviously, in some big moments. They didn't look nearly as good when he was injured. They missed that Arizona State game when they lost. But I think that those flaws were on full display in the Oregon loss. And so you upgrade there with Brendan Sorsby. I don't know that Brendan Sorsby is a world beater, but he's about as tough as they come. And I think he is an upgrade both as a runner and as a passer. I like what Texas Tech did outside of the skill positions. Sam, what did you see from what they did on the lines, where you're probably not going to have quite as beastly of a defensive line up front, but still strong? Where did they go there?
Yeah, I think it's hard to replicate what they did in 25. Yeah. Like getting another David Bailey, getting another Romello Hunter.
You only got David Bailey because
David
Bailey only happened because Troy Taylor gets fired like in the offseason, and suddenly Stanford guys are available who weren't available.
Right. So I guess getting that level of guy is going to be hard. That said, again, I don't know that we were talking about Romello Height and David Bailey this way a year ago also. And so credit due to their staff for being able to plug and fit and develop and get those guys to fit together, because I thought it was terrific. But I thought they did as good a job as you can get. Adam Trick coming in to January, everybody had eyes on him as like a 7-figure edge rusher and one of the top edge rushers in the portal. Trey White, also one of the top edge rushers in the portal. I thought that those two positions did really, really good. They got an all Big 12 linebacker in Austin Romaine right behind them. I thought overall they had their needs mostly on the defensive line, defensive front, and I thought they hammered them, and I thought they got really, really good players. If there's only one thing I could change about this class, is that they would have ended up getting Cam Coleman. If you're James Blanchard, you would have liked to have closed on Cam Coleman, and they were in the mix. Obviously, Coleman ended up going to Texas, and I think you
Coy Parrish too.
Right, yeah. If you get Cam, then I feel comfortable about Ubben's prediction about Tech actually making a real run at a title. I still think they're a playoff team, but I would have loved to have seen a dynamic playmaker like Coleman or somebody of Nick Marsh. So those were all guys they were interested in. I would have liked to have seen them pull in one of those guys. But when you talk about the formula to win that they needed last year, they're running that back, and I thought they upgraded a quarterback. The thing about Sorsby, his elusiveness, his running ability is going to give them an element that they really needed and did not have when they lost to Oregon.
Yeah, this time last year, there were those whispers about Texas Tech of like, they're making some noise. They're in on guys that just Texas Tech traditionally had not been. You learned more about the influx of the money later in the offseason. And then obviously I think that was the most dominant storyline in the Big 12 this year. Did you see a program make not necessarily a Texas Tech-like move, but start to have an influence and a competitiveness for guys in the portal that we haven't really seen to this point in the portal era of college football?
I think Kentucky is that team for me. I was really impressed with what Will Stein and Pat Biondo and his staff did in this cycle. They swiped Kenny Minchie from Nebraska. We all know that one happened. Minchie committed to Nebraska, and then within 24 hours, he was signed, sealed, and delivered to Kentucky. That was a big win. They were in the mix for Sam Leavitt early. That was one that, you thought it was a courtesy visit.
Yeah, I was like, that doesn't really make sense if I'm Sam Leavitt, but like, okay,
yeah,
you must love Will Stein.
Will Stein Sam is a great quarterback guy.
He coached at Oregon. Sam Leavitt's from Oregon. I think they may have had a connection there as well. So Kentucky making some moves, and Kenny Minchie now David's quarterback in CFB 26.
I will say I can vouch for Kenny Minchie. He is. I left my job at South Carolina. I'm now running Arkansas, and Kenny Minchie is my quarterback, and he is awesome.
Yeah. By the way, I forgot to say at the top of the show, Sam is now in our dynasty. He has
joined this year.
He
took over for a Texas team that Mike Norvell had stripped.
Oh my gosh, the roster. This was very realistic. I have roster management in this game for Mike Norvell. Like what I was left with on this Texas roster was not ideal. But hey, we're off to a 5-0 start. We've got Red River coming up, waiting to
me and
play
Sam.
Chris's Sooners here soon. So we'll see how that goes. But no, I thought getting Lance Hurd, the All SEC offensive tackle from Tennessee, was a big one. They really did well on the offensive line. Colton Price from Baylor. CJ Baxter, the running back from Texas. I thought every time I turned around, Kentucky was taking a guy that I was like, wow, I love that take. I just thought they took a lot of really good impact players. And I'm not saying they're going to go in the SEC or anything, but I think they're going to be a lot better football team next year.
Yeah.
I wonder on the Kentucky front, because Mark Stoops' buyout was like almost $40 million, and it was supposed to be paid within 60 days of him getting fired. But instead, the sides made an agreement where he got a little bit of that up front, and then he's paid for the next like 5 or 6 years. I'm curious if that opened up more money from Kentucky to simply just be able to pay players because they didn't have to pay Mark Stoops, because that's a school that is spending a lot of money on its basketball roster at the moment too. So the fact that they were able to make some moves is notable. Let's continue this. Like one of the questions I had here was most under the radar class, maybe one that's kind of outside the top 10, outside the top 25, maybe. Sam, would you say it would be Kentucky? I can just kind of continue it if that's what you.
I actually got another one for you. I really like Cal. I like what now they did lose a good bit, but again, a lot of the takes I kept turning around at their takes and been like, man, like Adam Muhammad from Washington, I thought was a terrific take. Dorian Thomas, the tight end from New Mexico, really good take. Ian Strong from Rutgers, that's a guy Notre Dame was trying to get in on a visit. They were able to sign, seal, get him delivered before he even got there and finished that. I thought and then of course they kept JKS.
Yeah,
that was the first big win for the Tosh
Whatever happened to Cal? If you kept Sagapolutele, period, that's a huge win.
Yeah,
because I think a lot of people last year are watching Cal and like, oh, he'd be good on name X team, and the fact that he's still playing for Cal, I think you couldn't have a bigger win.
Dude, from week one, we were talking about that. We were asking, like, after week one last year, like, okay, where's he playing next year? Because and Ron Rivera, their general manager, he knew it. They took credit to the front office as well, because they were on that from the start. Ron Rivera made it clear early in the season, this is our number one priority, is retaining Sagapolutele. There was no question about it. And I thought they just put a lot of really nice skill players around him in the portal. Again, the guys I mentioned, Chase Hendricks, another one. I thought the receiver from Ohio, really productive in the MAC. I thought they did a terrific job. Houston's another one that I thought quietly didn't take a bunch of big name guys, but man, you talk about fit. They got a lot of guys that either they have relationships with or that I think are really good system fits for what they do. And they were able to retain their best players, Connor Wigman, Amari Thomas, both able to get them re-signed. They're a 10-win ball club that I think could be a dark horse in the Big 12 this year.
By the way, at Cal, the offensive coordinator who they hired there, Jordan Somerville, he was the assistant QB coach with the Bucs, helped Baker Mayfield become what he is. That's going to be a really interesting dynamic as the guy who's working with him now, because you have an offensive coach. Plus, they've kept Nick Rolovich on the staff, who really good relationship with him. Under the radar class for me, South Carolina. They signed 8 offensive linemen in this class after having maybe the worst offensive line in all of Power 4 last year. Like their entire season blew up because the offensive line was terrible. They fired Sean Elliott, the offensive line coach, during the season. Lenora Sellers running for his life. For as much as we talk about the disappointment of a lot of the big name quarterbacks last year, Lenora Sellers chief among them. a big chunk of that was because he had zero protection whatsoever. So South Carolina recognized this, went out and got 8 offensive linemen. A lot of those guys have a lot of snaps. These are experienced guys. So I think they recognize their biggest hole. Their success is going to come around whether or not you can get the most out of Lenora Sellers. And you had to do that by fixing the offensive line. And they have at least attempted to do that. They added Nitro Tuggle, another amazing name, receiver from Purdue. I'm a fan of what South Carolina did, even if it's not a top ranked class. I think it was a smart class.
Well, also real quick, they also retaining Sellers and Dylan Stewart.
Yes.
I thought was huge. But on the offensive line, I'm gonna give you a little stat here. 7 of those 8 offensive linemen they added were D1 guys, combined for 147 career starts and more than 11,000 career snaps. A lot of experience they're bringing in up front.
Yeah, I liked Arizona State's class. Obviously, a huge blow to lose Sam Levitt, but I do think it probably helps them that they knew that like 6 weeks before the portal opened that like you're losing Sam Levitt, so let's have a plan B. They go get Cutter Boley from Kentucky, a guy who had he was the lone bright spot probably on that Kentucky team. It seemed like they had something there. And then I kind of like them bringing in Mikey Keene as like an insurance policy as a backup. Like it's tough to keep a good backup quarterback, but then obviously you lose Jordan Tyson. You want to load up on receivers. They do that. It's a pretty big class, obviously. But I liked what Arizona State did. They're a team that I think is on my list. So Marion Miller was probably Colorado's best offensive player last year, coming across the conference. And then of course you had Reed Harris as well from BC. So I like that class a lot.
I trust Kenny Dillingham on quarterbacks. And after they took him, I kind of wondered why they took Cutter Boley. And then I went back and watched the tape from when they played Texas, which was one of Kentucky's toughest defensive opponents that they played all year.
Should have won that game.
And should have won that game. And when you go back and really watch Cutter Boley, he's got some stuff, man. Like he's got
it's tough when a team is as bad as Kentucky is. It's just like, well, these guys all suck, and it's like, well, let's look.
No. I really am intrigued by how that's going to go. It would not shock me if Cutter Boley has the kind of season for Arizona State this coming year that Sam Levitt did in his first year when he got there from Michigan State. Nobody knew who he was.
Let's talk about our favorite class among kind of the top classes. Ones that you guys wrote about, ones we know. I'm going to go with Oklahoma State. I think to pretty much import the North Texas offense is exactly what you needed there. You got Eric Morris, the head coach, but you also brought Drew Mestemaker, led the nation in passing last year. I think he might be the best quarterback of this transfer group. Huge guy, quick release, has to work on some decision-making, but when you watch him in person and you see the ball come out of his hands, you're like, whoa. Like I'm at that USF North Texas game last year, and the first drive, Mestemaker takes him down in the zip. And you're like, man, this dude's incredible. Then he has a couple of turnovers, and then half of the game gets away from them. We're like, all right. But you can see the potential there. But you also brought Caleb Hawkins, really good freshman running back who was with them at North Texas. Wyatt Young, the receiver, who unbelievable year for him. You brought some of the offensive linemen, some of the defensive guys. And not part of the class technically, but Skylar Cassidy, the defensive coordinator, who did a really good job there. He fixed that defense that had been the problem for so long. I think Oklahoma State could like really be in the mix for the Big 12 run here. Texas Tech's going to be the favorite, obviously, but man, like this is exactly what you wanted if you're Oklahoma State when you get Eric Morris. You're getting him, you're getting his players, you're getting local guys, you're not far away. Makes a lot of sense. They had been so putrid the last couple of years, Oklahoma State. Like their roster was so bad. Like Tulsa beats them. They didn't beat a Power 4 team last year. They've winless in Big 12 play 2 straight years, I think. Like, it's got so bad so fast. And now you have flipped it by adding 53 guys, almost 40,000 career snaps, and a bunch of studs. I love what they got.
Yeah, I thought they did a terrific job. And you talk about Mestemaker, plenty of guys that I talked to would say he had the best arm talent of the portal quarterbacks out there. Like the guy can whip it. And also just
I was surprised. But I was surprised he stayed at North Texas even last year because he plays in that bowl game against Texas State. Has an unbelievable game. They end up losing, and North Texas brought in the
Reese
dude,
Parkenbarger from Miami
Poffenbarger.
and Albany.
And I was surprised nobody went and got Mestemaker. And he stuck with North Texas, then ends up winning the job, having a big year. So good for them and good for Oklahoma State.
Yeah, I think they're going to be a bowl team next year, in my opinion.
Yeah, sure. I pointed to Notre Dame. I liked what they did. Obviously, a program that's in some good shape, other than losing future Heisman Trophy winner Kenny Minchie. You knew that like they wanted some help at defensive line and receiver, and I love what they got. And they seem like, to me, if you see them in almost all these top 10 lists, when you only take 7 transfers, I think that says a lot about the state of your program, and also just how picky they were at specific positions. DJ McKinney, also at corner, he's played about as much football as anybody, in a few places. Oklahoma State was pretty good at Colorado as well. But Quincy Porter, coming over from Ohio State, Mylan Graham also coming over from Ohio State, adding a couple receivers there, probably aided by them losing Brian Hartline there. But I really like what Notre Dame did. Also,
but the defensive tackle they added, Francis Brew from Pitt, 6'6", 336. It's a big boy, man.
And that was their biggest need, was interior defensive line, and I thought they attacked it in a really good way. My favorite class of the group's got to be Texas. I thought Sark and Brandon Harris really went for it this year. They know
it was a weird start for Texas too.
Because the attention was on who walked, which was Parker Livingstone ended up going. The CJ Baxter, Trey Wisner. They lost some guys who were real contributors for this team in recent years, but they were looking for a higher level guy, and they know they've got really probably just 1 year left with Arch Manning.
Yeah.
So you got to maximize it. They missed the playoff last year. They'd been to it 2 years in a row. They're not trying to miss it again. They're trying to go win a national championship, but they went and got Cam Coleman, which for my money was the best player in the portal. They went and got Raleek Brown. They went and got Hollywood Smothers, who was, by the way, committed to Alabama.
It's an unbelievable 1-2 punch later, at running back.
Raleek
Brown and Hollywood Smothers, they're not the guys that got a ton of headlines last year, in part because they played for kind of average teams. But, dude, every time you watch those guys, they jumped off the screen. I hadn't really watched Smothers. And then, on my little tour last year, week 1, I was covering the NC State ECU game in person. And every single time Smothers touched the ball, it's like, who is this guy? This guy's unbelievable. They can't tackle him. He's getting out everywhere. He's got an unbelievable pep to him. And he kind of kept that going all season long. But, man, Raleek Brown and Hollywood Smothers is a 1-2 punch with Cam Coleman on the outside. Good Lord. You just can't ask for anything better if you're Arch Manning.
Oh, by the way, they addressed the offensive line. Finally took a couple of portal transfers at that position, which Sark had not done since he'd been at Texas.
He hadn't done it, and so we thought going into last year, well, the offensive line must be pretty good, because even though they lost guys from 24, they clearly believe in the guys that they have. Turned out to not be a great evaluation there, so they did recover with the portal this year.
Yeah, no, I thought Melvin Ciani from Wake Forest, really, he was a guy early last year that you could see was coming on for them. So being able to get him was really good. And then Rasheem Biles, the all ACC linebacker from Pitt, helped fill the void for Anthony Hill Jr. is gone. I just thought they hit every major need they had in a big way. And like I said, I thought they really went for it. The other one that I really liked wasn't a top 10 class, but I thought was really good was Louisville. I thought Louisville, retained Isaac Brown, which is huge. Got their quarterback in Lincoln Keenholz. Trey Richardson, Brody Foley. I think they did a really solid job at Louisville, and I think they're a team that I'm really intrigued by this year for sure.
Yeah, Richardson was Vanderbilt's leading receiver last year, so to pull him was pretty notable. Let's talk about our biggest individual single player additions. Like which one do you think is the most impactful? I'll go first, kind of playing off of what we just talked about, but it's Cam Coleman in Texas for me. I mean, Arch did not have the number one guy last year that they thought they did in Ryan Wingo. It didn't turn out to be that. And Cam Coleman had a good year without much help. I covered that Oklahoma-Auburn game where Jackson Arnold just kept missing him deep. And he was there and he was open and he made a couple unbelievable catches. This is a stud wide receiver. If not for Jeremiah Smith, we're talking about Cam Coleman a lot more, I think. And Arch is going to have the guy who's going to take the top off of the defense, and that's going to open up everything for him and all the other pieces that Sam mentioned there. I think Arch has a big year because I think Cam Coleman has a big year. It's the biggest thing they needed was to have a guy who can really be that number one guy, and they got it. What about you guys?
I went with Jordan Seaton at LSU. Like, there's just not a lot of possible top 5 picks on the offensive line just jumping in the portal at the last second. And, we can qualm with how that came together or how that happened. And Jordan Seaton seemed pretty locked in with Colorado for a long time. But the reality is he's going to be wearing purple and gold next year. And just an unbelievable way to protect a big asset in Sam Levitt. And obviously it's going to cost LSU a bunch. But in terms of just NFL talent, experience, their line play is so hard to come by in the portal. And to get a guy like Seaton, who I do think will probably be a top 5, top 10 pick eventually. He's been everything that people thought he would be. And he was the number 1 overall recruit, 2 years ago. Just a massive, massive pickup for LSU.
Yeah, I like Darian Mensah for Miami. I know we haven't touched on Miami. I thought they were our number 5 class, but it was really, really touch and go for Miami there when they swung and missed on Sam Levitt. They weren't able to get Sorsby on a visit. They weren't able to get Ty Simpson convinced to stay in school and transfer. And we got to the very end, and they were able to get Darian Mensah in right at the 11th hour, maybe a little bit after. But he was our number 1 quarterback in the portal. I thought really when you watched him last year, you understood why he commanded the kind of money he did when he went from Tulane to Duke. And I know there's obviously a lot of drama about his departure, but just from a pure player standpoint, I think he's an improvement over Carson Beck just from a pure talent standpoint. I think he's just a little bit more gifted, a little bit more mobile. And I love they didn't have to take a lot of guys, but they took really impactful guys. But I think Mensah's going to help them be right back in the mix next year. So I thought that getting a difference maker and fulfilling your need in the way that they did, even though it took a little longer than they wanted, I thought they did a great job.
It's really 2 straight schools Mensah's kind of left under not great terms. His departure from Tulane was not great either because he had been hurt late in the year and stuff like that. But it's fascinating because I went to Tulane last year and spent some time with John Summerall, and he was like, when I took over, nobody from the previous staff thought anything of Mensah either. Like, and even guys on Tulane's own staff with Summerall didn't quite think about much of him. And then
he was third string coming into preseason camp.
In fall camp, Summerall's like, give Mensah more snaps. And they did. And then he turned out to be, now he's making millions and millions of dollars. It's just fascinating when guys like that really, truly fall through the cracks, even at their own schools. Now let's talk about the opposite side of this. Losers of the portal, schools who had rough goes, whether guys they didn't get or guys they lost. And I'm going to go with Iowa State. This is not Iowa State's fault. You lose your coach, Matt Campbell, and you immediately hire Jimmy Rogers, an outsider. I believe the final number last I saw was 55 guys were in the portal. If the number is bigger, Sam, you can correct me.
Let me see. Of scholarship guys, 47. That's what they
47 scholarship.
Oh no, wait, no. I'm sorry. That was how many they took. 57 guys that they
57. I undershot it. 57 they lost. At one point, I think they only had like 16 returning scholarship guys. This is just the downside of unlimited transfers, is when you lose your coach, a coach is going to take a lot of guys with him. And because Iowa State didn't, make Taylor Mauser the coach, the OC, instead of bringing in Jimmy Rogers right away, Mauser goes to Penn State and Rocco Becht, and a lot of those guys went with him. And so it's a real true big reset here for Iowa State, which is tough, which is coming off of the most sustained success they've ever had. They were a win away from the college football playoff a year ago when they played Arizona State in the Big 12 championship game. And it's a full-on reset here. We'll see how they look. It's such a complete overload. I don't know, but a lot of talent went out the door there simply because you lose your coach. That's a tough spot.
I'm going with Alabama. You got to get better. And everybody around you seems like they're getting better. And I think Alabama, you look at what they did, it seemed like they lost more than they gained. You don't have the big time guys coming in. Obviously, you lose Hollywood Smothers late. But you look at them, they lose a bunch on the defensive line. Jordan Renaud goes to Ole Miss. Receiver Isaiah Horton goes to Texas A&M. They lose a couple defensive front guys, Quay Rousseau, James Smith to Ohio State, Cam Calhoun as well. And it's just not enough to fill that void behind them. And when you look at them just defensively, from what we've seen from Alabama, a shell of the former self of that program. And then, offensive line got to improve. And still some questions at quarterback. Certainly some upside there, but Alabama, I don't think they got better in this portal window, and I think a bunch of people around them got better. And you're still talking about an Alabama team, that sort of barely got in the playoff anyway. So it's not great, not what you want to see.
The thing I agree with you on that. The thing that bothered me the most about their class is you came into the portal with one big need, which was get an impact running back. And
they couldn't run the ball last year.
Yeah,
it didn't. I will say I don't think it's the running back's fault, but yes.
No, I agree. Yeah, they did. I will give them credit. They did address the line of scrimmage, offensive defensive lines really well. I thought Devin Tompkins, the defensive tackle from USC, I thought was a really good addition. But I was really surprised at how many young, inexperienced upside offensive linemen they took. Like Alabama's a program that I think you can.
You're Alabama.
Proven. Yeah, like you could get some proven starters at that position. But I'll say this: Courtney Morgan, the GM there, he's a former offensive lineman. I know he's got a good eye for that. So hey, he knows that position better than I do. So we'll see how it plays out. But I just thought they'd get more proven offensive linemen. The teams for me that I look at when I talk about guys that didn't do enough, I thought North Carolina, to me, again, I'm just sitting here scratching my head. They ended up traded out Gio Lopez for Billy Edwards at quarterback, which I did not love that.
Not quite. They did add just recently.
Well, wait. I'll hit that. I'll hit that in just a second. But because that's just happened the last 48 hours. But yeah. I didn't love that. I just didn't think that there were a lot of really big impact guys they brought in. It just, again, like I talked to earlier at the show, I thought it was just rearranging deck chairs to a certain extent. I do love that they took Teron Dickens, and it boggled my mind why it took somebody so long.
Yeah. Why was he at Tarleton? I thought he would be at least G5.
I think
wouldn't be surprised. I
think it's the frame.
He's small. He's like 5'11",
rail thin. Yeah. He's a small guy.
But for people who don't remember, we've talked about Teron Dickens a couple times on the show. We are the number one
of the show, one might say,
fan base here. I've shouted him out a couple of times. He set a record with like 40 something straight completions at one point. Last year, almost 10 yards per attempt, 38 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, completed 75% of his passes. Part of that was the offense that Kerwin Bell, they're running there at Western Carolina, but he was putting up huge numbers. And when I saw he was going to Tarleton of all places, I was like, man, I couldn't believe nobody else took a flyer on him and comes back to North Carolina. And I'll just say, I'm not a Billy Edwards fan at all. I would not be surprised if Teron Dickens is playing for Bobby Petrino and Bill Belichick next year.
Listen, far be it from me to question the judgment of a 6-time Super Bowl champion and one of America's great podcasters in Mike Lombardi. But their actions would seem to suggest that they liked Billy Edwards more than Gio Lopez. And I'm like, based on what I have seen, I don't really get that. Wake Forest, I think, benefited from that. But I don't know, man. I thought Gio, once he was healthy down the stretch last year, I thought he was like as good as you could have expected him to be. And another year, in that program with Bobby Petrino.
Under Bobby Petrino coming in.
That's the thing. I imagine Petrino probably had a lot of influence in that and certainly was a factor. But like, you draw a straight line from Taylon Green at Arkansas to Gio Lopez at UNC. I'm like, I kind of like that. But Teron Dickens, again, if we don't see Teron Dickens throw a bunch of balls next year at UNC, I'll be surprised. Just not in the Billy Edwards business.
Maybe they fell into their guy. The Billy Edwards thing, I mean, he's a talented guy, but of the 4 seasons he's played, he's only played 1 full season.
1 year without suffering some sort of major injury. Yes.
And I do think Gio Lopez is going to make Wake very happy. The other class that I think about, I think was a good class, but again, didn't fill the major need was Tennessee. I thought Tennessee took a lot of really good players. I thought Chaz Coleman was a really good one, but they needed a quarterback, and they swung and missed on a bunch of guys. They tried to get Levitt, they weren't successful. They tried to get several others. They weren't able to get. They ended up with Ryan Staub from Colorado. I guess they're going to go with Faison Brandon.
They're in court now. I think they're going to win that Aguilar case.
Oh, the Joey Aguilar. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, but still, they were clearly in the quarterback market because the Joey Aguilar thing is
they're not trying to bring Joey Aguilar back if they.
He's going to the combine this week, by the way. So.
Right. So that it wasn't a sure thing, and so I wish they would have come out with a quarterback. But otherwise, I thought they had a pretty good class. But when classes don't fill the major need or they strike out on the major need, it really sits with me.
I think to bring it back around too, part of what happened in this cycle was there were simply too many good, rich teams that didn't feel good enough about their quarterback that they're paying, that's driving the money up for all these other guys that have to go. Miami needs somebody. They have to do something. Tennessee needs somebody. LSU needs somebody. That's supply and demand. That's basic economics. That's how this is usually supposed to work. Let's have just some leftover thoughts, anything you guys may have. One thing that popped to mind for me, Alonzo Barnett, quarterback from James Madison, ends up at UCF. I like that fit.
I think it could
be a really good fit for what Scott Frost likes to do there. Barnett, good player, played well in the playoff run for them. Something to keep an eye on there. I think he's really interesting. Any other guys or teams or anything that jumped out to you guys?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Florida. I thought being able to keep Jaden Ball out of the portal when it was very clear everybody and their mother wanted him, particularly Texas. But
John Summerall said it at the press conference. He's like, "Yeah, we got to keep Jaden Ball." Didn't say that about DJ Lagway.
Yeah, Jaden Woods, edge rusher, they ready to keep him too. They got their quarterback in Aaron Philo. Eric Singleton a year ago was the #1 receiver in the portal. Didn't end up having a great season at Auburn, but that really wasn't on him. The quarterback play at Auburn was not good. Singleton reuniting with Buster Faulkner. I think that the combination of Philo, Singleton, and Jaden Ball, I think has some real potential. And I think John Summerall has a chance to make some real noise in year one. I also really like what Wisconsin did. I think Colton Joseph is a really good system fit for what Jeff Grimes does offensively. With a lot of the play action, the bootlegs, and the wide zone running they do. Joseph's a tremendous runner, and I think arm strength sufficient enough to get it downfield. And I like some of the other players that they added in that class overall. So I like those two. And UCLA quietly, Bob Chesney. I thought getting Nico back was really big, and I like a lot of the guys they brought in. I think they quietly got better in this cycle. So I think the Bruins are going to be really intriguing to watch.
They got UCLA also added noted running back Wayne Knight, who we like to talk about on the show.
I can't believe I have to drive all the way to work on a Saturday. All the way to work.
That is,
I love that. I love that movie. Love that clip.
We're going to start playing it more during the season when David and I are going to games that are local. We have to drive to work on Saturday. Was there anything else? There was one other guy I wanted to mention. David, was there anything else that stuck out to you in this?
No,
quarter?
I mean, if I'm being honest, the realities of actual college football and our dynasty sometimes run together in my head. So, if I mention on a show this year that Kenny Minchie could do some things for Arkansas, I apologize in advance. But
I got one more for you. Texas A&M didn't hit on Coleman again. One of the many teams in the Cam Coleman sweepstakes that left disappointed. But I liked a lot of their additions. Isaiah Horton, Ed receiver, Anto Saka, the edge rusher from Northwestern, freak athlete. I think he's got the potential to make a Cassius Howell type jump. If he can get it figured out there. But they're a team that, again, not a lot of flash, but they didn't lose a lot. They only lost one starter in the portal, so they didn't need a lot. But I like, Tawfiq Bayard, Grant Coney. I thought a lot of their takes were really, really solid. So I think A&M is a team that stayed really, really.
I will say whatever it is worth it. But Sam, what's your understanding of the final price tag for Cam Coleman?
Oh, I would have to think it's at least 3. But it could be higher. I don't know. From what I was told, but when he went into the portal, is that the negotiations from what everybody that was in the sweepstakes, it was going to start at $2 million. That was the floor.
That seems
low. I wouldn't be shocked if it got above 3. But I mean, of course, as we know, these things are hard to pin down.
He is that good. I just think a lot of the guys, Auburn was so average last year that I don't think a lot of if you weren't watching Auburn from week to week or you didn't see what he did against your team, if you're not an SEC fan, like Cam Coleman is that good. And he made a huge jump last year. You saw kind of flashes of it as a freshman. And last year, you're just like, oh my gosh, thank goodness that the rest of Auburn's team is not very good because Cam Coleman will wreck your Saturday.
Watching Auburn's was a frustrating experience just as someone who just likes to watch good football, and the inability to get the ball to Cam Coleman and Eric Singleton with regularity consistently with the ball placed properly was infuriating to watch, because those two could have made the best receiver tandem in the country if they had the right quarterback play.
By the way, on that note, Jackson Arnold, UNLV now playing for Dan Mullen. I like that.
I like that.
Yeah, I do too. I think
they could do a lot. Dan Mullen did a really good job last year. Totally had to retool the roster, put together a good team. Lost Calandria after Calandria said he was going to stay. Calandria ends up at Nebraska. But UNLV, I think Dan Mullen showed they do a pretty good job of identifying there, and Jackson Arnold could do things. And speaking on that, the last interesting note for me was Dylan Raiola leaving Nebraska after the broken leg to be a backup for Oregon because Dante Moore is returning. Now, he didn't know that at the time necessarily, but he stayed there. He's going to be the backup. He's going to do the Dante Moore thing after Moore came from UCLA. So I find that to be really interesting, potentially really mature, because I still think there's some stuff there with Raiola, but it was way too inconsistent, the footwork and stuff like that. So that's a big one as a backup.
He gets to recover and develop and be ready for his time when it comes. The Jackson Arnold to Dan Mullen thing, I think that made a ton of sense. Dan Mullen's like, if you guys remember, I know it's like a 27-year-old song, but Forgot About Dre, where they say, when your album sales weren't doing too good, who's the doctor they told you to go see? Dan Mullen is that guy for quarterbacks that have washed out somewhere. I think Jackson Arnold will get right with Dan Mullen.
Yeah, Calandria was the Mountain West Offensive Player of the Year, I think he was.
Yeah, and again, a guy like, you never know what's going to happen when the ball snapped to Anthony Calandria. It's going to be fun and entertaining. You know that. You just don't know if it's going to be positive.
UNLV was one of my favorite teams to watch last year. They were a complete chaos team.
Calandria is such fun, but I thought Mullen really got it out of him. Like he really maximized what he had there, and so I think the physical talent for Jackson Arnold's still there. So I think that pairing's going to go really well, in my opinion.
And we'll see, I guess, how Calandria does at Nebraska now with Dana Holgerson fully running the offense there. Last thing I actually wanted to mention, because we're talking about the money and all these things and money going up and all this stuff, despite, as we know, now there is technically a rev share cap. Last year, we didn't have that. Part of the reason the money was so high a year ago is because everybody front-loaded everything, get it in before the deadline. But we're fully in the rev share cycle here. And by all accounts, the money's still going up. How exactly, we'll see. There's the CSE is supposed to kind of approve a lot of these third-party deals. That will come in the spring. What will happen if a high-profile one is denied? We don't know. You have the MMR partners like Learfield and PlayFi, the people who do these media rights for schools, signing players to deals that are basically promising X amount of dollars in deals that they will set up. But we don't know if that's fully going to be approved. Sam, what's your read on just kind of the general state of the unofficial soft cap and where this money's coming from and how it's allowed?
I think everybody's waiting to see what's going to happen. Is anybody actually going to get flagged and punished for it? And I have questions of whether that's possible at this point. As you all know, that agreement that the CSC circulated back in the fall, they weren't able to get everybody to sign it. That said, basically, we're going to abide by the rules and we'll agree not to sue you. So, because that's my question. What happens as soon as the CSC says, well, this team broke the rules and they have to serve X consequences? What's the first thing that's probably going to happen? It's probably going to get sued. So that's my question, is until we get to a point where there's that organization has real teeth in its enforcement, then I think we're just going to keep seeing the market grow, because at least at the top, because teams are going to do what they have to do to win. I do think in the middle and below, it's going to set itself, because I just don't think schools can afford this. I don't think schools are affording it now. So like you talk about Iowa States of the world, trying to fully fund the cap is enough challenge as it is. And so schools at the mid-tier Power 4 and down on, I don't think you're going to see a lot of, hey, we're trying to circumvent the cap, because they're having a hard enough time getting to the cap. But it's for the teams that are competing for national championship and do have those resources. I think that's the competition amongst those schools is going to continue to be furious until we have some real structure, either a hard cap or in real enforcement that has teeth behind it.
Yeah. And I think a lot of fans either don't believe in it or don't care, and they're not going to think about it on Saturdays. So I try not to get too caught up in the weeds on that because I think it can be kind of boring. But bottom line is these players are on these teams, and I'm going to be surprised if there's any way they're not playing for them come fall. So with that, we're going to end the show the way we always do, and that is by remembering some guys.
It's better than this. Guys being dudes.
And in the spirit of Sacramento State, I'm going to go with a former Sac State wide receiver, Ryan Coogler, Oscar director, who also transferred once. He originally went to St. Mary's College, but that program got shut down. He transferred to Sac State, had 112 catches over 4 years. Very solid run there in the early to mid 2000s. And now is doing things that are much more prominent, like making Sinners, which I think should win Best Picture because that was fantastic. That's Oscars are about a month away. Sinners, if you haven't seen it, great movie. Ryan Coogler.
He reads more like a DB to me than a receiver. I got to tell you, he's got DB vibes.
What does that mean?
Just vibes based, generally. I look at him, I go, I played DB back in the day.
All right, David, what's your guy?
My guy is our guy, Jake Locker, who I think was the actual person who taught me that just because people say you're the number one pick doesn't mean that you're going to be the number one pick. And Jake Locker had a pretty interesting career. He started in college around the time that I was in college and beginning to work professionally. And I would say that, a fun player, dual threat guy, but his most memorable moment for me was scoring against BYU at week 1 in the 2008 season, and then throws the ball up in the air in celebration, gets a penalty. The extra point gets backed up 15 yards. It gets blocked. They lose. The first loss on the way to what was eventually an 0-12 season that capped by the Sour Apple Cup at the end of the year between Washington and Washington State, 2 winless teams. But came back, had a decent season. They went 5-7 the year after that, and he was eventually picked 8th overall. Did not have a great NFL career, but Jake Locker, I remember that guy.
I love a big dude who's dual threat, 6'3", 225, and could run. I love that.
I think Dante Culpepper was one of the first guys in college that I remember watching and being like, that guy is massive and he can move. I watched him play in person, UCF. Shout out to that was back in the Golden Knights era, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
We should save him for a future thing. David's doing the thing again where he gives away guys to remember.
To be fair, you teed me up to remember a guy there, so I'm sorry.
Sam, what about you?
I got one that's gonna. I think you guys are gonna recognize this name. I don't know. I'm bringing this one up because I think enough time has passed that people are so young they don't know who this guy was. But Sam McGuffey, you guys remember?
Sam no!
So here's the problem. Here's the problem. This was my remembered guy in the very previous episode before this one.
Really?
Yeah,
I clearly didn't listen then.
Well, because of the Olympics.
Spirit, yeah.
Because he went to the Olympics on the bobsled team. So we did have a big Sam McGuffey run. Anybody else from those Rice teams?
That's funny.
In the mid to late 2000s?
I'll give you a different one then. Not another Rice guy, but a Houston guy. Darren Thomas. You remember the quarterback Darren Thomas played at Oregon?
Oh yeah,
he was fun guy. Aldine High School down in Texas, down in Houston, Texas. Ended up going to Oregon and had a really good career there. Didn't really make it in the NFL. Really bounced around in the kind of semi-pro circuit, pro non-NFL circuit. But really talented high school recruit. Really good. I think did he cross over with D'Anthony Thomas at Oregon? I think in that Chip Kelly era. I think
that whole era kind of runs together for me. The backs, the quarterbacks.
Well, Chip was only a coach for 4 years.
Yeah, but he was at the front end before Oregon became Oregon. Darren Thomas was one of those first really big stars for them, and turned into something. So that's a guy I was thinking about earlier today. I was like, man, I don't even know what he's doing. I was like, I wonder what Darren Thomas is up to these days, but really talented Oregon quarterback. It was at the front end of the fun Oregon offenses before they really became a juggernaut, so to speak.
You
nearly
know,
won the national championship. David, don't start listing other guys. We have to save guys, and we're going to start doubling up.
There's a lot of guys to remember. I'm going to do it anyway. You remember one of my favorite Houston quarterbacks, who I do know what is doing now, possible future NFL head coach. My guy, Gerard Johnson, I profiled him a bajillion years ago. He's the guy who taught me that it's pronounced Humble, Texas.
That's right. Oh, you didn't know that?
This was like 2009. I've been away from Arkansas for 4 years. So shout out to Gerard Johnson. From
Gerard's
Humble,
good
Texas.
people, man.
He is good. I love good dude.
No, if he didn't have that shoulder injury at A&M, in I think it was his junior season, I always wonder how it would have turned out, because he physically, when he came out of high school, he had the build. Like, he was 6'5", like 225. He could run. He had a big arm.
Him and Jeff Fuller while we're remembering guys.
And
spontaneously combust.
Talented quarterback, but he's a rising star in the profession. Quarterback coach for the Houston Texans.
I was gonna say, what Gerard Johnson's doing now? Yep, he's doing a really good job there.
Yeah, he did some like private coaching, quarterback training for a little while after when he was doing the Colts internship, and then he ended up getting a position coach job. Wouldn't be shocked to see him be an OC somewhere, maybe eventually a head coach in the NFL down the road. He's really good guy.
You know what? I was looking up Gerard Johnson's Wikipedia here. He played for this football league. I kind of remember this, the Your Call football. It was a thing in which fans called the plays on an app, and the teams had to run it. I thought Johnny Manziel
did one, but it was called something else, though.
Fan-controlled football.
That's what it was.
The one Manziel was. Man, the late 2010s, there was some weird-ass football leagues going on.
That's right, man.
Now we just got David Ubben calling plays for us to win a national championship on our
UFL starts.
Mitchie, call me. Let's do this thing.
Then UFL
does start soon. Okay, we went a bit long at the end of the show, like we always do.
We went long, Chris. Imagine that.
I'm looking forward. We're going to talk more about College Football 26 very soon. We're going to try to bring on Jason Kirk, our colleague, also in our Media Dynasty, to talk about the game long term, looking back at the game and stuff like that. But we'll also have some interviews coming up, more news to talk about, getting back in the swing of things here. So we appreciate that, and we apprate Sam for being here. I learned a lot.
We'll give you all the update when I pound Oklahoma and Red River in the next
couple game weeks away from that happening. But a lot happened in the
Bowl 3 is still several weeks away, so I don't think we'll be playing that one for a little bit. So
a lot happened in the portal. Hopefully you listened to this and got a better sense of who's where going into spring ball. We'll talk about more of this movement and stuff during spring once we get into the previews before the season. Long way to go before then, but figured it was a good time to kind of recap the portal and who did well, because it can be a bit of a whirlwind. And Sam was in a bunker for a month dealing with that. So Sam, welcome back up to the real world. Welcome into our College Football 26 Dynasty. And thank you for joining the show. For Sam Kahn, for David Ubben, I am Chris Vannini. Thank you for listening and watching Bunch Formation. And we will talk to you next week.
And please bring back the turnover chain.